going to begin the trim process on this job here this morning, and I figured we'd start with the base trim. Alright, the base trim is probably the easiest trim to apply. I'm going to show you here in a minute how we're going to cut each piece, measure, cut, and how we're going to cut inside corners and outside corners. Alright, so basically when you start your base trim job, you can just pick a wall. Doesn't matter where you start, because when you put the first piece in, all the other pieces are going to build off that piece, alright? They're all going to connect to the first piece. So the first piece, you kind of just pick a corner or pick a wall. I'm actually going to start over here in this corner. And what we're going to be doing here this morning is we're going to be applying a piece of trim, base trim, starting in this corner. And we're going to come out here to this outside corner, alright? So what we're going to have on this piece is we're going to have a straight cut, no angle on it. It's going to butt right into this wall here, and then we're going to have an outside 90-degree corner cut on the other end of this trim. Alright, so here's how I would go about this, and everybody's got a little bit different way that they like to trim and measure, but here's how I have found to be the easiest. I'm going to measure out of the corner where my piece is going to butt up to, out to this outside corner here, and you can see I got 61.5. So what I normally do is I'll cut a piece about 1.5 inches or 2 inches bigger than that straight off. So I'll cut a piece off about 63 inches straight off, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that. Okay, what I'm using here is 3¼ inch colonial base trim. All right, it's probably the most common base trim out there. 3¼ colonial is found in more homes, at least in our part of the country, than any other base trim. So what I'm going to do. So I'm going to cut that piece off in about 63, 64 inches, about 1.5 inches to 2 inches longer than what I need. Alright, now I'm using my compound miter box here from DeWalt. Just cut that off at 64 straight off. Alright, now we're going to take that piece over here, and I also want to let you know that we're going to be having carpet installed in this portion of the basement right here. So what I'm using is, I made these 1/2 inch blocks out of 2x4, alright, these are called gauge blocks, and I'm going to be setting my trim on top of these. That'll keep the base trim up off the concrete floor 1/2 inch, and that way when the carpet men come in they can tuck the carpet underneath the base trim, and it makes for a nice finished product. You never want to sit your base trim on the floor. So I'm using 1/2 inch gauge blocks for all my base trim, weathers carpet. Alright, so we put a gauge block on each side, set our piece on top of the gauge block and push it into the corner. Alright, butt it up into the corner. Now, over here on this end here, this is where you're actually figuring out your angle. Now what I normally do is I push my piece back tight into the corner, push it back against the wall tight, and with a sharp pencil on the back side here, I'm going to draw the corner right up the back. Okay? Pull that out. Alright, so that line right there represents the corner. That's where the inside with the short point of our cut's going to be. Okay? That's where the short point of our cut's going to be. Now I'm going to show you how to cut this over on the saw using that pencil line. Okay, now what you want to do is you're going to want to stand your piece of trim up inside the box, back against the guide in the back, okay? Just like it would be on the wall. Now, make a little pencil mark on top of your trim so you know where that line's at. Alright, you're not going to be able to see the line because it's going to be back against the guard. So bring that line up over the top just a little bit, okay? So you can see where the line is. Now what you're going to do is remember, now this is the short point, and I'll explain the short point in a minute, but your saw is going to be cutting on an angle across the trim, okay? You want to set your trim so that The line on the back becomes the short point of the cut we're going to make. All right, you want to set your saw on a 45 so that when you cut that line, the line where you cut becomes the short point. All right, so a little pencil marks where we're going to be cutting down through the trim on this 45. So line up your saw. I normally get down in front of my saw and check out my cut. Hold on a second here. Gotta set this up a little better. That's better. Alright, so we're going to cut that line now. See, I cut it a little bit long. All right. It's always better to be a little bit long than short. I'm going to take that back over here and just check that out. I know it's going to be a little long, but I want to show you what I'm trying to do here. All right. If you look behind there, you can still see my pencil line, and the piece is a little bit too long. So I'm going to take it back to the saw, and I'm going to take about another 1/8 of an inch off. And what you want is you want this short point of this cut. All right, this is the long point, this is the short point. All right, long point, short point. Your short point is always the corner on outside corners. All right, your short point on your cut is always the corner on outside corner cuts. This is an outside corner cut because we're coming around an outside corner here. So your short point is the corner. Well, and it's the pencil line you drew up the corner. So let's take it back to the saw and cut a little bit more off and get that pencil line just so that it's on the outside corner, the corner bead of this of the drywall here. It should be perfect. Take about 1/8 of an inch more off. Now, so I can gauge what I'm doing here, I'm going to draw that 1/8 of an inch on the painted side where I can see it with my my saw blade. So that's about how long we were over there yet. So I'm going to run my saw down and cut right to that pencil line, and that should get me right to where the pencil line is on the back if I cut that. All right, put it back in the saw, cut that line out. See on the back now, I split my pencil line right down the middle. That should be a real good fit. Check it out over here. You can see that my pencil line, my inside part of the angle is exactly on the corner. So that should be a good piece. So I'm going to say that's going to be a proper fit right there, but I'm not going to nail this piece on yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the receiving piece here, coming back into this angle first, and make sure that they both fit nice here in the corner before I nail either of them. So once again, move this piece out of the way. Let's take our tape measure down into this corner here where it's going to go alongside the door here, and measure back to the corner. All right, I got about 68 3/4 rather, and I'll probably cut my piece about 71 inches. All right, so we're going to cut a piece 71 inches straight off. Take that back over here to the corner. Get ourselves 2 more 1/2 inch gauge blocks. Alright, set our piece on the gauge blocks, butt it into the corner where it's going to sit. And we're going to come back down here now. And we're going to draw our pencil line up the back side of this piece again. Alright, just run your pencil point up along the wall on the trim piece. Okay? That's going to be your short point, and that's the angle that we're going to be cutting right down that line there over at the saw. And remember, when you cut these, make sure you don't cut them short, because if you cut them short, the piece is ruined. If you cut them long, you can always trim a little bit more off. What I'm going to do this time is I'm going to put my trim in the saw upside down. Alright, this is the top of the trim. I'm going to stick it in upside down this time. Bring my line up over the bottom a little bit so I can see where I'm going to be cutting. Alright. And put my saw on that same 45 again. And cut down through the trim on a 45. You can see that time we just about got it right on the head that time, all right? We just missed our pencil line, but let's check that out and see if that's going to work for us. That's so close that it actually might work. All right. Okay, so if you come over here and go straight down with this cut, that's a pretty nice fit right there. And I'm going to say you're not going to get much better than that. Alright, but you see we got this piece here all the way down in that corner. We butted it into that corner, and this piece is butted into this corner over here. Tighten the corner. Can't get a playing card in there. Alright, it's nice and tight. Down here we got a perfect 90 degree. Can't get much better than that. And we're tight down in that corner. So this outside corner is now complete, and that never changes, guys. You always put your piece on, cut them a little long, run your pencil point up the back, bring your pencil point over the top a little bit so you can see where your angle is. Cut it on a 45, and once you get your cut onto that pencil line, you'll almost always have a perfect 90 in the corner. All right, so now what we got to do is nail that up. Now, I wanted to show you what I'm using here. Here I'm using a 16 gauge trim gun. Alright, doesn't have to be Porter cable, that just happens to be the brand of this one. Any 16 gauge trim gun will work. And I'm using 2.5 inch straight finish nails. Alright, so there's 2.5 inch nails in here. So when we shoot through the trim and the drywall, we get a good bite into the 2x4 wall. Okay? Let me show you how to nail this stuff here now. You always want to start on your outside corner, okay? Make sure that your fit's good over here. Nail your outside corner first and get it perfect. I'm going to come down about 1 inch from the top, in about 1.5 inches from the corner, all right? 1 inch down from the top of your piece, in 1.5 inches from your corner. That's where your nails are going to go. One nail there, and the other nail you want to keep down at the bottom of the trim up about 1/2 inch. Boom, boom. Okay? Now what you want to do is you want to find your studs in the wall. You're coming across here. You're going to want to find your 2x4s. All right? It's really important that you either use a stud finder that you can buy at the store to find your studs. Otherwise, when you shoot into your walls, now we're shooting up over top of a bookcase here, but there's studs in here. All right, I have to hit my studs, or my nails are just going to go through the drywall and it's not going to hold the trim on. All right, you bump it with the vacuum cleaner, your trim's going to fall off. So you want to make sure that you hit your studs. But if you were using a stud finder, you'd find your studs and you'd make a little pencil mark on your trim, okay, where your first stud is, and then from there you should be able to go 16 inches. There should be a stud every 16 inches. Okay, and then you just nail it up. Inch down, 1/2 inch up. Inch down, 1/2 inch up. Alright, and we're hitting solid into 2x4s here. Inch down, 1/2 inch up. Alright, over to the other side. Make sure that we got a good fit here in the corner first. Make that corner look real crisp and clean. And go ahead and nail that up. Inch down, 1.5 inches in from the corner, 1/2 inch up from the bottom. Alright, nice 90 right there. Looks good. Find your studs. Doesn't matter what stud you find, any direction. Wherever you have an outlet, you're generally going to have a stud. That's an easy way to find a stud if you don't have a stud finder. There's going to be an outlet, there's going to be a stud on either side of your outlet. By knocking on the wall, you can normally tell which side it's on. It's over on this side. So let's measure out of the corner to that side of the outlet. About 33 inches. Should be a stud right there. Let's try that. Let's see how we do. That's good. So now what we can do is we can go 16 inches from there. Find the rest of our studs. Now I'm making little pencil marks on the trim, but you're going to have to go back and touch up your paint on the base trim anyway once the trim's done, so you can just paint these little pencil marks when you come back across. Take your gauge blocks out and you're ready to move on to your next piece. Alright, so that is the proper way to do an outside corner with your base trim.